Oprah Winfrey has welcomed some of Hollywood's brightest stars onto her iconic couch, but not every interview ended in applause. Over the years, a few encounters turned tense, awkward, and even controversial, fueling whispers about the rare moments that pushed Oprah's legendary patience to the edge. Now, fans are buzzing about 9 black actors whose appearances allegedly sparked unexpected drama, heated exchanges, and unforgettable behind-the-scenes tension. Once celebrated as fan-favorite guests, invited back again and again because of their fame, influence, and star power, something changed. Actions were taken, lines were crossed, and suddenly, the door to Oprah's show was closed to them for good. In this video, we dive deep into the stories, the controversies, and the shocking moments that left audiences stunned, and explore the one question everyone keeps asking: what really happened after the cameras stopped rolling? Ossie Davis, a name once spoken with reverence, a symbol of intellect, dignity, and cultural power. To the public, he was a humanitarian voice, a towering figure in American film and theater. But behind the curtains of fame, one shocking day revealed a side no one was prepared to see. On August 15, 1989, backstage at a television taping discussing Do the Right Thing, the atmosphere buzzed with excitement. Davis arrived alongside Spike Lee and Roger Ebert, carrying his signature calm presence and the respect of everyone in the room. The cameras weren't even rolling yet, but in the quiet corners behind the stage, something dark began to unfold. In the makeup room, while guests waited for the show to begin, Davis struck up conversation with a young makeup artist. She stayed focused on her work, polite but distant. Suddenly, without warning, he knocked an entire tray of makeup onto her lap. Powder and foundation exploded across her white skirt. She froze, then broke into tears, hands trembling as she tried to clean the mess. Instead of remorse, he watched with cold amusement, scolding her harshly and mocking her distress. Moments later, when the room was nearly empty, the tension escalated. As she struggled to gather her tools, he moved closer, cornering her. Panic filled the small space. She fought back in desperation, finally breaking free and rushing toward the door just as Oprah Winfrey happened to walk past. The door swung open, revealing the young woman in tears, shaken and disheveled. Oprah's expression hardened instantly. Anger flashed across her face, but the show was minutes from going live. She steadied herself, swallowed the outrage, and quietly guided the young woman away to comfort her. Moments later, under bright studio lights, Davis spoke eloquently about justice and humanity, as if nothing had happened behind the scenes. After the taping wrapped, chaos struck again. A staff break room was mysteriously locked from the inside. Crew members gathered outside, confused and uneasy as loud crashing noises echoed within. Security was called. When the door finally opened, the room was in ruins. Bags soaked with spilled water, personal items damaged, high heels crushed against the floor. Davis stepped out wearing a faint smirk. No explanation. No apology. He tossed the room key toward Oprah, striking her before it clattered to the ground, and walked away, leaving behind stunned silence and shaken witnesses. For many who were there that day, the illusion shattered. The man once praised as a voice of wisdom had revealed a chilling contrast behind closed doors. And for Oprah Winfrey, something fundamental changed, not through public confrontation, but through quiet distance and a loss of trust that would never be rebuilt. To the outside world, his legacy remained polished and celebrated. But for those who stood backstage that afternoon, the memory lingered, a moment when the mask fell away, and fame could no longer hide the darkness beneath. Harry Belafonte, a legendary name, celebrated singer, actor, and outspoken social activist whose influence stretched far beyond the stage. To many, he embodied conscience and courage, a man who fused art with social struggle and left a powerful imprint on public life. But in one troubling account that circulated behind the scenes, a far darker image began to take shape, one that allegedly left Oprah Winfrey shaken to her core. On March 10, 1984, backstage at AM Chicago buzzed with restless energy after taping wrapped. Studio lights faded to black while crew members hurried through the halls, footsteps echoing across the concrete floor. In that chaos, Belafonte reportedly moved with unusual tension, his familiar calm nowhere to be seen. According to the story, he quietly guided Oprah toward a dim corner near the elevators where fewer eyes lingered. His grip on her wrist was described as tight enough to leave red marks. The narrow space felt suffocating as her back pressed against the wall. The account claims he leaned in, attempting to force a kiss, his breath heavy and invasive. A hand allegedly slid beneath her clothing in a rough, shameless advance, while whispers framed as career support sounded more like veiled threats. Oprah, the story says, gathered every ounce of strength she had and pushed him away, breaking free from the shadowed corner with trembling hands, disheveled clothes, and tears born from shock and fear. Though the moment was never publicly escalated, the emotional scar reportedly lingered. Afterward, whenever they appeared together, she maintained a noticeable distance, polite on the surface, yet guarded, her wary glances revealing an invisible wall that had formed between them. By 1986, another alleged incident during an off-site taping tied to community advocacy painted an even harsher picture. A minor delay in the schedule reportedly triggered a sudden outburst. In a waiting room filled with anxious staff, a large glass vase was slammed onto the floor, shattering into razor-sharp fragments that sent people jumping back in panic. A nearby female production assistant's hand was cut by flying shards, not life-threatening, but long and painful. Witnesses in the story claim the rage didn't stop there. Kicks scattered glass across the room as harsh insults were hurled at the women present. Fear hung thick in the air, leaving bystanders frozen between shock and silence. Then, near the end of June 1987, another unsettling scene allegedly unfolded. After a taping session, Oprah walked through a dim parking lot and noticed a limousine blocking the path. Through a partially open window, she reportedly saw Belafonte embracing a young blonde woman, their kiss intense and unmistakable. In that same moment, a phone rang. The story describes him answering a call from his wife, speaking in gentle, loving tones while his arm remained wrapped around the other woman's waist. To the outside world, his spouse still believed he was tirelessly working for noble causes, unaware of what was said to be happening behind tinted glass. Oprah, according to the account, felt a wave of nausea as trust shattered completely. From that point forward, her discomfort allegedly became impossible to hide, avoiding shared events whenever possible and showing visible unease whenever his name surfaced. In this narrative, what she claimed to have witnessed firsthand transformed admiration into deep disgust, cracking the carefully crafted image of a revered activist and artist behind the curtain of public life. Marcus Kane. Marcus Kane. A name that once echoed through Hollywood like thunder, a box office king, a respected actor praised for his intensity and magnetic presence. On camera, he spoke about craft, discipline, and heart. Off camera, whispers painted a much darker portrait. In the early 1990s, backstage at the iconic Evelyn Hart show felt like the private kingdom of a superstar who knew no limits. When the studio lights faded and the applause died, the air behind the curtains often turned heavy, thick with tension no one dared name. On a cold November night in 1992, after an episode promoting a powerful biographical film, the backstage dressing rooms fell silent. A young intern, barely 20, had been sent to deliver wardrobe pieces. The hallway lights flickered as she stepped inside. Moments later, the silence shattered. Strange sounds leaked through the thin walls, muffled struggle, broken sobs. Evelyn, sitting in the next room, froze when she heard them. She pushed the door open, and the scene before her made her blood run cold. Without hesitation, she rushed forward, pulling the terrified girl away from a man whose fame had long shielded him from consequence. The incident vanished behind closed doors, buried under silence and settlement checks, but something inside Evelyn changed forever. Years later, another taping revealed a pattern no one wanted to confront. A young assistant accidentally dropped a stack of scripts near Marcus's chair. Papers fluttered to the floor. In seconds, rage erupted. A violent blow sent the assistant crashing down, blood staining the studio floor. Monitors in the control room captured everything, producers watching in stunned silence. No one moved until Evelyn herself stepped in, halting the chaos. Production stopped. The victim was rushed away for emergency care while the studio filled with an unbearable quiet. From that day on, people avoided eye contact whenever Marcus walked by. The final crack came one winter night near New Year's Eve in 1998. After a late taping, Marcus's car rolled into the dimly lit parking garage. Yellow lights reflected off the cold concrete as a young makeup artist followed behind him. Minutes later, she stumbled out alone, shaken and in tears, her heels clattering across the empty floor. Evelyn happened to pass through the garage at that moment. She saw the girl sitting on the curb, hugging herself, trembling under the fluorescent glow. No explanation was needed. In that instant, whatever respect remained vanished forever. Over the years, Evelyn carried those memories like a chain around her heart. The man the world praised as charming and generous had become, in her eyes, a symbol of power used to dominate and destroy. Fame had built him a throne, but behind the curtain, it had also revealed a monster few dared confront. Danny Glover, the respected Hollywood veteran known for playing principled, honorable men, carried a reputation that sharply contrasted with the troubling rumors whispered behind the scenes during preparations for the Oprah Winfrey Show episodes Tied to Beloved in 1998. On camera, he projected calm authority and integrity. Off camera, according to some staff accounts, the atmosphere backstage felt tense and unpredictable whenever he arrived. In the days leading up to the March 14th broadcast, the production team worked under heavy pressure. Technicians adjusted lights, editors rushed final cuts, and crew members moved quickly through crowded hallways. During one rehearsal in the technical area, tensions reportedly escalated when Glover became unhappy with the stage lighting. Witnesses claimed a confrontation turned physical, leaving a crew member injured and forcing Oprah to halt everything to call for medical help. The studio reportedly fell silent afterward, with many staff feeling shaken yet reluctant to speak openly. Only a week later, another incident circulated among crew members. According to internal chatter at the time, a female editor alleged that Glover touched her inappropriately while she was picking up fallen papers. She reacted immediately, pushing him away, but the moment reportedly left the staff disturbed and angry. When Oprah heard the story, she confronted him privately and warned that any further misconduct toward her team would not be tolerated. Although no further confrontations were publicly reported during the shoot, the mood backstage never fully relaxed. Crew members remained cautious, keeping interactions strictly professional. Some also recalled a smaller but telling moment. After a long, exhausting filming day, refreshments set aside for the entire crew disappeared. Staff later claimed Glover had taken them before leaving the studio without a word, deepening resentment that had already taken root. Years later, during reunions connected to The Color Purple, those memories reportedly lingered. Even without new incidents, the energy backstage shifted whenever he appeared, polite on the surface, yet distant and guarded. Oprah herself was said to maintain a clear professional boundary, her warmth replaced by formality. To many who witnessed those tense days, the experience shattered the image of a man widely praised for integrity and social activism. The contrast between the admired public persona and the stories shared privately among crew members created a lasting sense of disappointment. For Oprah and parts of her team, the divide between the man seen on screen and the one they believed they encountered behind the scenes was impossible to ignore, and, in their eyes, impossible to forget. Sidney Poitier. Sidney Poitier, a legendary figure admired for his calm presence and groundbreaking roles. Yet behind the polished image, stories surfaced that shook even Oprah Winfrey's trust. Celebrated as a trailblazer who opened doors for generations of black actors, Poitier was once praised for dignity, discipline, and powerful performances rooted in social change. In the late 1990s, he became involved in several book-related projects and interviews connected to Oprah. On December 12, 1999, during preparations for an early collaboration, a minor scheduling change triggered an unexpected outburst. A young male assistant approached him with a laptop to update details, hands trembling slightly. Without warning, Poitier reportedly stepped forward, snatched the computer, and slammed it violently onto a table. The crack echoed across the room as plastic shards flew, one sharp fragment cutting the assistant's face. Shocked and furious, The assistant grabbed Poitier's collar, nearly turning the moment into a fight, until Oprah, witnessing the chaos from outside, rushed in to separate them and tend to the injury. Throughout the incident, Poitier remained silent, his expression cold and unreadable. To keep the situation from escalating publicly, Oprah later covered the cost of the damaged laptop. Nearly a year later, on October 14, 2000, after an official studio interview wrapped and the lights dimmed, another disturbing episode allegedly unfolded. As staff packed equipment, a young female editor was asked to stay behind to help. While walking through a darkened corner backstage, she was reportedly seized and dragged into a restroom. The narrow space became a scene of fear and struggle, her resistance met with threats that left her feeling powerless. Strange noises carried through the thin walls, sounds Oprah overheard as she stepped out of a nearby restroom. Without hesitation, she pounded on the door. It eventually opened, Poitier emerging with a hardened look, brushing past her as if nothing had happened. Inside, the editor sat shaken on the floor, pale and trembling. The sight revived rumors Oprah had once heard, whispers from 1998 about a female fan who claimed she had been drugged and taken to a hotel room only to be discarded afterward. At the time, the story faded without legal action, dismissed by many as gossip. But witnessing the editor's devastation firsthand forced Oprah to question everything she believed about the revered icon. Poitier's fame had once shone so brightly that those who felt harmed seemed to disappear into silence, carrying their pain alone while the world continued to celebrate the legend. Morgan Freeman, a name once synonymous with wisdom, calm authority, and a voice that could silence a room. For decades, he stood as one of Hollywood's most trusted figures, a man audiences believed in without question. But behind that reassuring presence, whispers told a far darker story. According to unsettling accounts shared quietly behind closed doors, the man admired on screen was not always the same person away from the spotlight. Oprah Winfrey, who had crossed paths with him many times throughout her career, was said to have gradually grown distant after witnessing moments that deeply disturbed her. One memory reportedly stayed with her, June 10, 1995, on a tense film set following an audition. A production assistant accidentally dropped a live microphone. What should have been a minor mishap suddenly exploded into chaos. Freeman, who had been resting in a chair, allegedly sprang up in fury, shouting, shoving, and pointing aggressively while the stunned crew watched in silence. The assistant was pulled into a hallway amid heated threats. Minutes later, he returned shaken, nursing a bruised arm. Cameras rolled again soon after, and Freeman appeared composed, as if nothing had happened, but backstage whispers spread like wildfire. Years later, another moment reportedly left Oprah deeply unsettled. On August 18, 1998, after a late-night meeting, she allegedly noticed a distressed makeup artist rushing away from Freeman's private car. The young woman's clothing was torn, red marks visible across her skin. Sitting by the roadside in tears, she confided fears of threats and career pressure. Though Oprah tried to encourage her to speak out, the woman was too afraid to come forward. Publicly, Freeman's image remained untouchable, interviews smooth, audiences applauding, his legend growing stronger. But for Oprah, the memories never faded. Those who worked closely with her noticed a quiet distance replace what once seemed like admiration. She never spoke openly to the press, yet behind the scenes she quietly warned younger women to be cautious, sharing the story only in hushed conversations meant to protect others from harm. Samuel L. Jackson, a name once synonymous with raw charisma, commanding presence, and unforgettable performances. On screen, he was the embodiment of strength and intensity, a larger-than-life figure who dominated every scene he entered. Audiences knew him as the fearless icon of American cinema, bold, outspoken, impossible to ignore. But in this dark, dramatized account, the man behind the spotlight reveals moments that shattered the image many believed was unbreakable. One tense evening, after an interview promoting Jungle Fever, the once busy hallway behind the dressing rooms fell eerily quiet. A young audio intern accidentally wandered into the dim corridor, and suddenly found herself trapped in an uncomfortable and frightening encounter. Panic filled the air as she struggled to break free, her heart pounding, fear silencing her voice. At that exact moment, Oprah Winfrey stepped into the hallway, drawn by unsettling sounds. Her voice cut through the tension. "Hey, what's going on there?" And the atmosphere instantly shifted. The confrontation ended abruptly, but the shock lingered, leaving a deep crack in how she saw him from that day forward. Years later, their paths crossed again during the recording of the animated educational film Our Friend Martin. The studio buzzed with nervous energy, but tension erupted backstage when a ringing phone shattered the silence. In a sudden burst of anger, Jackson grabbed the device from a staff member and slammed it to the ground, the sound echoing across the room. Shocked crew members froze as the broken phone bounced across the floor. Instead of apology, laughter filled the space, a moment that left everyone stunned. Oprah witnessed it all. She quietly helped the shaken staff members, picking up the shattered pieces and offering calm reassurance. When she later attempted to smooth things over, she was met with nothing but indifference. In that instant, whatever patience remained finally dissolved. From then on, distance replaced familiarity, and the respect she once held faded into quiet disillusionment. To her, the man behind the camera no longer matched the polished image admired by millions, revealing a stark contrast between public legend and private persona. Lawrence Fishburne, a name long associated with quiet authority, powerful performances, and an unshakable on-screen presence. To the public, he carried the image of a respected veteran, a calm professional admired across Hollywood. But in this dramatized account, behind that polished reputation lingered moments that quietly unsettled those around him, even Oprah Winfrey herself. In the mid-1990s, during a collaborative film project connected to Oprah's production circle, an incident reportedly cast the first shadow. A stray cat, well known and gently cared for by the crew, wandered near the set entrance one afternoon. As the animal cried loudly nearby, tension flared. In a sudden moment of frustration, Fishburne allegedly reacted harshly, an act that shocked witnesses and left the surrounding staff frozen in disbelief. Oprah, standing just a short distance away, was said to have watched the moment unfold in stunned silence. From that day forward, an unspoken distance reportedly formed between them. Years later, during the backstage taping period of Akeelah and the Bee, another unsettling situation allegedly deepened the discomfort. After filming wrapped, the staff break room was suddenly found locked from the inside. Confusion spread as crew members pounded on the door for nearly half an hour before security finally unlocked it. Inside, Fishburne was found asleep on the sofa, seemingly unaware of the chaos outside. Though the situation ended without confrontation, the uneasy atmosphere lingered. As evening came and staff began packing up, several people reportedly discovered small personal items missing: pens, notebooks, bits of makeup. The losses were minor, and no one pushed for a formal investigation. But whispers circulated quietly backstage. Later, Oprah was said to have noticed an item belonging to a crew member tucked into Fishburne's pocket, marked clearly with the staffer's initials. The moment reportedly left her deeply disheartened. From then on, in this story, Oprah maintained only strictly professional contact with him. Conversations grew shorter, interactions more guarded. To audiences watching from home, Fishburne's calm and approachable image never seemed to change. But behind the scenes, at least in this dramatized narrative, that image had already fractured in the eyes of those who once worked closely beside him. James Earl Jones, a name once spoken with reverence, a voice that felt larger than life. To millions, he was a legend, powerful, dignified, unforgettable. But behind the curtain, some whispered that the man was far more complicated than the myth. In this dramatized retelling, one tense afternoon backstage after a tribute to his iconic voice, the air was thick with pressure. Crew members moved carefully around the celebrated star, afraid of making even the smallest mistake. A young technician, hands shaking, struggled to adjust a microphone quickly enough. What followed shocked everyone present. Frustration erupted. Voices were raised. Panic spread through the room as staff rushed to calm the escalating situation. The moment left the entire crew shaken, reminding them how fragile the line between admiration and fear could become when fame and stress collided. Years later, Again in this fictionalized narrative, another chaotic scene unfolded during preparations for a rushed interview tied to The Lion King. The atmosphere was tense, nerves already frayed. A young waitress entered carrying coffee for the guests. What should have been an ordinary moment turned uncomfortable as tempers flared over a simple misunderstanding. Drinks spilled, harsh words echoed, and the room fell silent under the weight of embarrassment and shock. One respected host stepped in immediately, offering comfort and restoring calm while everyone else watched in uneasy silence. Over time, repeated outbursts in these dramatized stories slowly reshaped how colleagues saw the legendary figure. Admiration faded into distance. Respect turned cautious. To the public, the icon remained larger than life, but behind closed doors, the legend felt more human, more flawed, and far more complicated than anyone expected. Stories like these, whether real, exaggerated, or imagined through the lens of storytelling, remind us that fame often hides uncomfortable truths. They challenge us to look beyond the spotlight and ask difficult questions about power, pressure, and the cost of celebrity. What do you think about the darker side of fame behind the camera? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss upcoming stories exploring the hidden realities behind celebrity culture.